Hey, good morning. Well, here we are back in the song room again. The lighting's a lot better. Julia told me that it was too distracting in here, but it's better lighting. By the way, when we built this house, it was supposed to be an office / sewing room, but it looks an awful lot like a sewing room. Okay, now this is our third installment on the book of Galatians. And remember, we said the theme of the book is Paul addressing a problem in the Galatian churches where Christians of a Jewish background were coming in and teaching that these Greek Christians had to follow certain Jewish laws, like circumcision. And remember, they had motivation for that. One is pride in developing a following, and two is maybe to escape persecution by adding circumcision to the gospel of Jesus Christ and being able to escape persecution, maybe even to make the gospel of Christ more attractive to Jews. So we looked at what Paul said, how he became a Christian. It was not after the will of man, but it was after he's called directly by Jesus Christ. He didn't get his message from any man, he got it directly from Jesus Christ. And we start then in Galatians chapter 2, verse 1, where he says, "Then after the space of 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas, taking Titus also with me." That's important, because Titus is not a Jewish Christian, he's a Greek Christian. And he said, I went up by revelation, which means God sent him. He says, "I laid up before them the gospel which I preach among the Gentiles," or the Greeks, "but privately before them who were of repute," and this would be the apostles and the leaders in the church in Jerusalem, "lest by any means I should be running or had run in vain." And verse 3, this is important. "But not even Titus, who is with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised." So in his argumentation to these Galatian Christians, he's saying, okay, if the original apostles, the great apostles, so-called apostles, wanted you to be circumcised, wouldn't they have made Titus be circumcised when he had taken Titus to Jerusalem and was in the presence of the apostles and the church leaders? But they didn't. Okay, and so then the message is, it's not anything required by the apostles. But verse 4, "And that because of the false brethren," the Jewish Christians who are teaching circumcision, "privately brought in, who came in privately to spy out our liberty which we have in Christ Jesus, that they might bring us into bondage," that is the bondage of the law. Okay? And so what Paul could see is, okay, starting with circumcision, what else are they going to throw into it and really just change the purity of Christianity? But he says in verse 5, "To whom we gave place in the way of subjection, no, not for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might continue with you." 6, "But from those who were reputed to be somewhat," and again he's talking about the leaders of the Jerusalem church, which would include Peter, "they, I say, who were of repute, imparted nothing to me." And so they didn't give Paul new information like, "Okay, Paul, here's your orders. When you're converting these Greeks, they've got to follow these Jewish practices." So Paul said, no, that wasn't the case. Verse 7, "But contrariwise, when they saw me that I had been entrusted with the gospel of the uncircumcision," or to the non-Jews or to the Greeks, "even as Peter with the gospel of the circumcision," so Paul was supposed to take the gospel to the Greeks, Peter to the Jews, although there'd be some shading where they would do both things. Verse 9, "And when they understood the grace that was given unto me, James," who's the brother of Jesus Christ, "and Cephas and John," Cephas is the apostle Peter, "they who were reputed to be pillars of the church, gave to me and Barnabas the right hands of fellowship, that we should go unto the Gentiles, and they unto the circumcision," or to the Jews. "Only they would that we should remember the poor, which very thing I was also zealous to do." So they added in, remember the poor. These would be, people who are financially poor. Sometimes people read this and think, oh, spiritually poor. That's not what this means. That they were to be concerned about the poor people. And in verse 11, Paul accounts something that historically happened. But when Cephas came to Antioch, which is in the region of Galatia, I resisted him to the face because he stood condemned. Look here. The Apostle Peter stood condemned for some reason. Remember, he had rejected Jesus Christ 3 times. That's not what this is talking about. Verse 12, for before Peter came from James, he ate with the Greek Christians, but when they came, that is, the Jewish Christians, he drew back and separated himself, fearing them they were of the circumcision. So, the Apostle Peter is eating with these Greek Christians, and then these Christians who were big on promoting circumcision comes in, and Peter goes, uh-oh. And so he separated himself from these Greek Christians to curry favor with these Jewish Christians. Verse 13, and the rest of the Jews dissembled likewise with him, insomuch that even Barnabas was carried away by their dissimulation, falling back. Now get this, 2 groups of people are described, the circumcision and the Jews. They're both Christians, both groups are Christians. So the Jews are Christians from Jewish background, and the circumcision are Jews they're Christians that are really promoting this idea of circumcision. And it had a big impact. Peter, what was his sin? There's hypocrisy. So he's showing favoritism. He's elevating one group of Christians above another. Verse 14, but when I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all, if thou being a Jew if you live like the Greeks and not as the Jews, how come you can compel the Greeks to live as the Jews? Okay, so get this, what Paul is telling him. By the way, he confronted him in front of both groups. That was necessary, okay, that he do this. He could have done it privately. But the whole point in this story is that he's not a second-class apostle, okay? As these Judaizing Christians claimed him to be, because they attacked his apostleship, said he wasn't a real apostle. So by this little incident, he's showing that he's not like a junior apostle beneath Peter. So that's important in the overall message of Paul trying to correct this problem of these Judaizing teachers. It's relevant today. We have all kinds of false doctrines that are taught. And so this is a good pattern for us to see how to approach this. All right. Next time. Thanks.